Okay, I just wanted to set the delay a little differently because it was like 30 seconds between when I would say something would show up on the screen. So I think it's fine now. People are saying they can't hear or see me yet. Say in the chat if you can hear and see me. Now I know why your nickname is on Livestream, man. Yeah, so this is the first live stream for the Engineer Man channel. I've never done this before. I thought maybe we would just do some stuff live. I'm just going to assume everybody can see and hear me. If you cannot, let me know. Or I know the admins are saying they're having some problems. And don't worry, we're going to get to some coding. Just bear with us for a second. Okay, looks like people are on the wrong stream. Sorry, I had to reset the stream because I selected one of the options that made it so there was a big delay between when I would actually speak it and then when it would finally come through. So I think it's fine now. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the Engineer Man channel a little bit before I get started. And during that time, I'm going to do a question and answer here after this for probably 10, 15 minutes, something like that. My admins are going to collect the questions and they're going to give them to me. So I'll put your questions in the comments if you want to ask me anything personally or stuff I've done or anything you want to know. I'm happy to answer any of it. And I think after that, what we're going to do is we're going to do two things after that. First is I've been working on a bot in Discord called Felix. You may have seen it in the chat a couple of times. So I'm going to actually integrate that with Giphy live on stream. So after that, you'll be able to ask Felix for a GIF of whatever, and then Felix will reach out to Giphy API and pull a GIF from there, and then throw it in the chat. So I thought that'd be a fun project to do live, and you'll get to see kind of how my mind works, how I approach a problem, and hopefully you can use that to build your own, figure different things out. So yeah, so ask your questions in the channel. I'm sorry, in the chat, and I'll just talk about the channel for a little bit. So Engineer Man channel is now about, believe it or not, it's about a year and a half old. I started it in May of 2017, and it didn't really do much when I first started producing videos. I got like 100 subscribers after a month, and I was ecstatic. I was ecstatic that happened. And I really did it because a friend of mine kept saying, hey, there's a huge market for making, that was back in the day of like Laracasts and Nodecasts and things like that. And I was originally called the Node guy. My niche was node.js. And I figured I'd just produce some videos and I would see what would happen if people wanted to watch it. And then that's sort of how the channel came to be. So I made a couple videos. People didn't really like the node.js stuff, so I started drifting towards Python. And once I did that, I realized that that is the kind of the key point for what people wanted to see. My niche was originally in C. Of course, I'm a Node.js developer professionally, and but everybody's asking for Python, Python, Python. So I just started producing those videos. I produced the basic series. People really liked it, and then I just started to produce more and more stuff. And I abandoned the channel a couple times. In fact, my most recent comeback was in June, and but when I came back in June, I had 4,000 subscribers, and now I have almost 50,000, which is just an absolutely insane number. So yeah, that's sort of the channel where it came from, and just gonna keep producing content and hope people like it, and hope everybody keeps coming back. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm gonna get into some questions here. I got two. I see my admins. They're basically curating the questions and they're passing them to me on Discord. So I see two. I'll answer those in a second. First thing I want to do though is I want to thank my admins, and I want to thank specifically CipherTrap, because on my 25K video I told him I would mention how much I appreciate his help and how much he's done in Discord, and I accidentally in a 1 a.m. editing session I cut that part out. In fact, if you watch the video, you'll notice I go from first to third and fourth, and CipherTrap was actually second, and I accidentally cut it out. So I want to just say now, thank you CipherTrap for everything you're doing here. It's a great help. Okay, so we're getting some questions. First one is, do you recommend learning Python 3 or Python 2? I get this question all the time, and I have a pretty simple answer for it. There's a lot of stuff in Python 2, and as a Python developer, you have to just grasp with that fact that just because everybody's using Python 3 doesn't mean that there's not this huge litany of software out there that's already in Python 2. So I recommend that you learn Python 3 from the outset if you're starting a new project. However, there are going to be times where you're going to use Python 2. You can't avoid it. And those reasons are if you already know Python 2 and you have a tight deadline and you want to get your product to market, then of course use what you know. Another reason to use Python 2 would be if you know you're going to deploy to a system where Python 2s are going to be there, or maybe Python 3 doesn't exist yet. I mean, one example would be like CentOS 5 and 6. They actually ship with Python 2, 2.6 specifically. 2.6 and CentOS 5. I think it ships with 2.7 and CentOS 6, but maybe even not. Maybe you have to download that later. But the point is Python 3 is not going to be readily available for you to use. So if you're going to be working in an environment that's Python 2 only, then that's sort of the limiting factor right there. You're going to have to just deal with that. As far as another reason you might use Python 2 is there are still some modules out there that only support Python 2, or they have a Python 3 port that's really not that great, and that's going to be a time where you're going to have to use Python 2. And that's what it is. However, besides all that, if you can, definitely choose Python 3, because there's a huge push to get it out there, and people want to, of course the Python developers, they want to use Python 3, and people are beginning to support more and more stuff in Python 3. So just try to avoid all the 2.7 is dying, fear mongering, whatever. Those are people that are they're starting new projects. They don't realize that there's a lot of practical reasons why you're still going to use Python 2. Okay, moving on. What flavor of Unix and Linux are you using? So I use Xubuntu, and I use whatever the long-term support version is at the moment. So usually every 2 years I'll reformat my computer, and I will put the latest on there. So right now I'm running 16.04, but the newest LTS is 18.04, and I intend to probably install that pretty soon. Don't know when exactly, but so that's the one I'm using. I've been using XUbuntu for a long time. Now, for my server stuff, anything I run in the cloud, I use CentOS. Almost exclusively. I just think it's a better server operating system. But for me, for desktop Linux, I just want to get going. I want it to install quick. I want it to work, and I just want to get back to what I'm doing. Like I don't feel the need to compile my own kernel. I don't feel the need to suffer and create like a Gentoo install or something like that. I just wanted to get going, and so that's what I do. I'm all about productivity. Will you be doing the next level series for Python? Yes, absolutely. I have an intermediate Python series that I'm planning out, and then I'm going to do an expert series as well. So I don't know exactly when. I can't put a time frame on it, but know that it is coming. It's something I'm committed to, and I'm going to make that work. How could you abandon the channel? I don't know if that's a question or if that's my admin telling me, but let's just talk about that. So for the longest time, I produced it. I produced stuff it was mostly for me. I just wanted to put it out there. And people were giving me a lot of hate in the beginning. Back when I had 600 or 700 subscribers, people were constantly tearing up my software. And people are constantly tearing up my software, and honestly, I was getting upset. Hey, I'm human. If you, I'm still human. If somebody comes and tells me they hate my software and this and that, and I got a little discouraged. And I was like, you know what? I'm trying to produce this for everyone. I want people to have this cool resource to go to, these high quality videos, and if I'm just going to produce them and then get a lot of hate in the comments, then that doesn't help me. Like I'm trying to help people, and I just didn't like that. So I abandoned it the one time. So I would make a comeback 7 months later in November, and I kind of got back into it. I was really enjoying it. I started doing some I had a different logo done. Hold on a second. Hey, stop it. Sorry. I had kind of new branding. I made my colors a little more vibrant, and I started doing some stuff differently. I made 2 videos, and they were related to GPU programming because that's what I was interested in at the moment. And at that time, I just didn't have the time. People liked my videos, but I just didn't have the time at that point. So then I kind of disappeared for another probably 8 months, and something happened in that 8 months that I thought was neat, and it was I went from 900 subscribers to about 4,200, and I didn't know how I did that because I didn't produce a single video in all the months, and I kept seeing comments flowing in, and people kept saying oh, I really like your videos. I wish you made more, things like that. And I was like, you know what? So I'm going to do a comeback, except when I come back, I'm going to do it differently. And I started doing color-coded thumbnails. And I started doing playlists, and I got my green screen, and I got a better microphone, and I started doing some post-processing to clean up all the audio, get rid of all the keyboard clicks, and I realized that had a huge impact on the quality of the video. And then, so here we are at that point. What do you think of the website Code Academy? Yeah, so I have some comments on Code Academy. I think it's a great first step for people to whet their appetite. When Code Academy first came out, it was free, like completely free, the whole thing. And now it's not. So now they've tried to commercialize it. But the problem with commercializing it is they haven't actually made it any better. It's still really buggy as you're going through it. I'm constantly having, there's a couple, I have a friend who has a son who's really interested in programming, and so I told him, go do Code Academy. If you have a problem, let me know, and I'll help you work it out. So But I remember he was working on some stuff in Code Academy, and he asked me a question. He said, "Hey, I'm pretty sure this is right, but it's not accepting it." And that's one of the common bugs of Code Academy, is you think you got it right, but it's telling you no, but it's really right, and usually because you're missing some nuance, nonsense that doesn't need to be there. And so Code Academy in some cases gives people the impression that things are harder than they are because their site doesn't work. So I'd really like to see Code Academy fix that. So if any Code Academy guy is watching my video, please fix your software and make it so when people put in the right answer that it actually works. What was your biggest project in Python? My biggest project in Python was probably I had a site, it's not up anymore, it was called eBrian. My real name is Brian. And I had the site where basically you could watch YouTube videos, and it was kind of like Khan Academy. It was when Khan Academy was really new, and as people were watching videos, it would record the number of minutes they were watching, and then it would give them points for that. And that's probably the biggest one because that had tons of stuff to do. That was database work, that was front-end JavaScript, that was a lot of Python. And that was probably the biggest project I ever did. I see many jobs in Java, so where do you see Python's use case in everything? Okay, so there's lots of jobs in Java, and anybody who's watched me talk or has been on my Discord know that I don't care for Java. And I think there's just better options now. You got to remember, you got to realize where we came from in computing. Back in the day, CPUs were really weak. They were low on RAM. So you needed to use things like C, and you needed to use things that watched the memory and that ran really fast because your system resources depended on it. But these days, I mean, Moore's law, technology is just accelerating so fast, and these increases in performance on the hardware make it so it's still important to write good code and write fast code, but if you can use a language that's easier and you can get to market quicker, then there's no downside to not do that. So I don't care for Java because I think it's too huge. It's too large, and it's too verbose, and I think it just creates code that is difficult to read, difficult to reason with. And I think the performance gain is not worth all that fight. So, but that doesn't mean that Python is the end-all be-all either. I'm a big proponent. I'm fluent in about 5 programming languages, and I have working proficiency in probably about 13. And I do that for 2 reasons. 1, because I want to be well-rounded, and 2, because if I'm doing a project, I want to pick the right tools for the job that I'm doing. And it's always good to know more, because if you could pick the right tool for the job rather than saying, oh, sorry, I'm a Python developer, so it doesn't matter what your project is because I'm going to do it in Python, then you're just more valuable. You're more valuable to an employer. You're more valuable to a potential client or new business or something like that. So it's important to know a lot of different things. Let's see. I don't know if anybody asked, are you wearing any pants? The answer is yes, I am. But thank you for whoever asked that. What are your recommendations for GUI programming in Python? So I don't do a lot of GUI programming, but if I did, I'd probably be doing things in like Electron these days, which is not Python. I know it's not an answer to your question. If you're dead set on doing stuff in Python, you can use tkinter, you can use wxglade, and I'm going to say this without knowing for sure, but I'm sure there's GTK bindings for Python. So that's what I'd look into. But I'd really wonder if you really need to use those technologies now when you could just use something like Electron and build your whole interface in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and just work it up that way. How do you actually use object-oriented programming in practice? This is a great question, whoever asked this, because if you think about it closely, coding is nothing more than like a code representation of something that occurs in real life. So imagine in real life, you are a person, and as a person, as a human, you have things that you are and things that you can do. And that can be represented, that translates real well to object-oriented software. So as a human, for instance, I have an attribute like age. I have an attribute like favorite whatever. I have an attribute of height. I have an attribute of weight. I have an attribute of allergies, whatever. But then I also have things that I can do. And that would map to like an object method. So I can... Wait, what just happened here? You send me money? Thank you for that. Even though you could do that. Thanks so much. So the... sorry, you tripped me up there. I didn't even realize people could send money. Nice. Thank you. Okay, lost my train of thought. Yeah, so attributes and methods. So on... there's also things as a human that we can do. So there may be a method for eat. There may be a method for sleep. There may be a method for whatever else. And so that transfers really nice to object-oriented programming. So when thinking in terms of object-oriented programming, just always think, how can I take things and isolate them into one little unit, things that are logically together. So you may create an object for a car. The car would have properties like color, age, gas or diesel, whatever, and then they have methods like drive and brake and open door and then stuff like that. So that's how you would actually use it. You would just section off code and say, I'm going to take all this common functionality, I'm going to put it into this object, and I'm going to represent it as properties and methods. Do you use Vim? What is your workflow for C programming? So I use Vim not to code, though. I know a lot of people that do. I have a hard time reasoning about using Vim to code because I like a text editor. I like to highlight things and I like to click into places and I don't think you can do that with Vim. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is... Oh, hold on. I got to answer my admin. Questions for 5 minutes. More. Okay. I do not use Vim. My workflow for C programming is just like anything else. I use Atom Editor. I usually create a makefile for my project, and then I just start creating source. Ooh, Vagrant or Docker. Okay, so I used Vagrant actually in the beginning. I used Vagrant before Docker was a thing, and I thought it was really cool technology. I thought it was pretty sweet. But then Docker took it a step further, and they completely removed the need for... Nice. Thanks for that, Kieran. Appreciate that. I need to watch my stuff closer. Hold on, let me scroll up here. Sorry, I didn't realize people are going to do this. Thank you so much. I want to make sure I get everybody. Okay. Thank you to Siddharth Shukla. Is that right? I don't know if I got that right. I'm sorry if I messed that up. Thank you to Kieran for that. And thank you. Oh, no, sorry, Kyron. And then Kieran. Thank you for that stuff. Okay. So Docker, they took it a step further and they just removed the whole need to even have a VM, and now you just Docker just does its Docker magic, and then suddenly you have this VM that's running in the, but it's not a VM, but it's all the processes of a VM. And so the quick answer is Vagrant or Docker. The answer is Docker for sure. Oh wow, thank you, Acid Hoss. Appreciate that. Thanks for the 5. Wow. Thank you so much. It's great. Have I ever used OS Kali Linux? If so, what are your thoughts? Okay, so Kali Linux, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but Kali Linux back in the day, it was originally called Backtrack. Backtrack 1, 2, 3, 4, possibly 5. Backtrack 5, I think. And then they rebranded to Kali Linux. So it used to be Backtrack, now it's Kali. I think Kali is a really great distribution. It has so much software that's related to, I don't want to say hacking, because there are, so first, hacking, offensive security, pen testing type stuff. The line between those two is, do you have permission to use that software on, on whatever server? So you got to be careful with that. But from a distro standpoint, from a pen testing standpoint, like you got Metasploit on there, you got Nessus. No, not Nessus. I'm sorry, I take that back. That's commercial software. You got Kismet. You got tons of HPing, all kinds of different software. I haven't used it in a while, but I remember a bunch. Metasploit primarily. And yeah, you should certainly check it out. Somebody said I should check it out. You should. You should check it out, because if you ever want to be in the security field, you're gonna have to check out Kali Linux. But now, keep in mind that Kali Linux is geared towards those security people, and so I wouldn't recommend Kali Linux as like a daily driver of operating systems of distros, just because it's not geared towards that. People like to use it. I don't know if they like the cool background or all the black text or whatever, but just check it out. But I wouldn't use this as a real distro every day. What's the point of using Linux, Ubuntu, etc.? Okay. So, at risk of starting a flame war of people, who oh, I got super chat. Okay. So at risk of starting a flame war of people who love their operating system. The reason I use Linux is because I want everything done fast. I just want it to work. I want it to go fast. I don't want to be waiting around. Every time I have to use Windows, it invariably ends with me opening something and it taking forever. And I can't deal with that. So I load out my computer. I got 64 gig of RAM. I got hex core CPU. And you pair that with a lightweight Linux distro like Xubuntu, which is Ubuntu with XFCE, and you get just a snappy experience. I don't like all the shadows and animations and the fading and all that. I just want it to go as fast as possible because I want to get back to work. So on Windows, you don't get that, and that's just because Windows is not geared towards the enthusiast, or at least not geared towards my kind of enthusiast. That's Windows is geared towards things like gaming enthusiasts and whatnot. And so, in short, the point of using Linux is if you want things to go fast, you want complete control of your machine, you want complete control of your resources, and you want to do things that Windows doesn't even allow, then Linux is your choice. What are the best ways for people to learn or get into programming without requiring a degree, such as computer science, engineering, etc.? So here's a story. I did go to college, but I didn't go to college. Oh, thank you for that 5, Vitor. If I said your name wrong, I really apologize. I didn't go to college until later in my life. So I went to college in 2013. 2012, 2013. However, I started programming in 1994. So it wasn't 20 years later until I went to college. Nope, that's not right. My math is wrong there. Hold on. Okay, can't do math today, but just know that it was way later in my life when I went through college. So everything that got me into programming and all the opportunities that I found in programming, I kind of did on my own merit. It was all not based on a degree, because a lot of that I didn't have a degree. I would later go to college for electrical engineering, and I went to college for electrical engineering because I already knew the computer systems engineering part. So I wanted to pick a kind of a degree path that was more in line with what I didn't already know. I didn't want to go in there and have them toss me a Java class or a C class and just crush it or whatever, or teach me stuff that I just already knew. So to answer that question directly, the way you get into it is you got to remember that in computer science, skills matter. You got to be able to do the skills. The employer is going to pick the guy that can do the skills over the guy that looks good on paper. So if you commit to your trade and you show a passion for your trade and you show an aptitude for your trade and you work on it all the time on the weekends and nights, and you just work and work and work and work and work. One sec. Yes, soon. One. Okay, so this is the last question. My admins let me know that we're way over on time for the Q&A portion. So I'm just going to finish this up, then we're going to do Discord bots. So yeah, to get into it just requires convincing somebody that you can do the job. And you can use the whole fake it till you make it type thing. If you just commit to one thing, like find the job you want, just get your foot in the door. And do so by showing all these projects. I know that when I interview people to work at my firm or for projects that I used to work on, the first thing I ask them is, do you have a GitHub? Do you work on open source? If so, send me your GitHub so I can check out all of your work. And so I go in, and within just 5 minutes or so, I already can see what this person does. And oftentimes I make my decision based on that. I've passed over the college grad for just the hard charging, grinder, hustling, developer who is just passionate about it and wants to do the job. And I picked him because of the passion and the aptitude. Yeah, maybe he didn't, maybe he couldn't do a binary tree if I asked him to go write on the whiteboard, but you know what? At that particular job, we weren't doing binary trees. So the guy that knows the binary tree didn't get the job, and that's just how it is. Okay, so that's it for questions. I said we would do, all right, so we did the intro, we did the questions. Let's make a Discord bot. We got about 25 minutes left, and yeah, let's do it. So the purpose of this, you could try to follow along if you want, but it's not geared towards people to follow along. I really want people to see how I approach a problem. I want to just do it from scratch. And let's make this small here, about that big. So I'm just going to go through the whole thing from not completely from scratch. I've done a couple things ahead of time, like my Discord bot already exists, so I'm just going to be adding to it. I mean, I can answer a couple more questions. Yeah. Let me know in the comments. Do you want me to answer more questions, or you want me to do? Or you want me to do Discord bots? Show the cat. I don't have a cat, but I do have a dog, and I can show the dog real quick. Hold on. So here's my dog. His name is Chase. He's not a cat, and he helps me with programming sometimes. but this is the cat. You want to say hi? Want to say hi to the live stream people? No? Okay. So that's my dog. Okay, so they're collecting. Yes. Okay, so I'll do the Discord bot now, and then I'll answer some questions at the end of the stream. Okay. Let me open this here. Oh, nope, not that one. Yeah, there we go. So what I'm looking to do here is I'm looking to integrate Giphy with Felix. Felix is my bot. And so the first thing I need to do is I need to research the API documentation and see exactly how I'm going to do that. So I've done a little bit of that already. I created the API key and I created the app. So the next step is check out the documentation. So here we are. So in this case, what I'm interested in is I'm interested in searching for a GIF and then displaying that GIF on the screen for people to get GIFs. So in this case, I'm interested in the search endpoint. And it tells me, it says host api.giphy.com. Path is going to be a get request /v1/gifs/search. Search all Giphy GIFs for a word or phrase, and then use a plus or URL encode for phrases, whatever. And then it tells me what I need to do. So for request parameters, I got to give it my API key, which I have. I got to give it q equals for the string, cheeseburgers. And then they have some optional stuff here, like I can limit the number of stuff I return from Giphy. I can do an offset. Offset would be like, if they wanted to give you 100 and you were limiting 20, you could do offset 0 for the first 20, and you could do offset 1 for the next 20. Oh, yep, my Sir Ducky, Senior Ducky, my admin just told me that he's going to put out a Python version for everybody once because I'm going to write it in node.js. He'll put out a Python version of the thing that I make in node.js. So stay tuned to that. So the rating, you can specify rating. I don't know exactly if this is G. I don't know, maybe this is like G, PG, R. Maybe you can specify like if you want not safe for work stuff or whatever. And then lang and then format. So I really just care about the API key and the query because those are the only two that are required. I don't care much about the limit and offset or the rating or whatever. So deal with that in a second. So to start, I know I need some modules. So in this case, I have discord.js and I have no camel, but I know I have to make a HTTP request. So the way I do that is I need to do like npm request. I know I'm gonna need this, so 2.88.0. So I'll add that. And then I know I need the peer dependency for request promise. .2.2. And then I also need the Q library for actual promises. And all I'm doing on the other screen is I'm just going to npm and just getting the latest version, whatever that is. So 1.5.1. So now that I have those, I can start actually making my code. So this is my current bot. All the bot does today is on message. If you say hi, what's up, yo, hey, or hello, Felix, you get hello. He tells you hello. This is unrelated. This is my poll stuff I was making last night. So we're gonna make something new down here. Let's give myself a little place to work. So for the actual piece, the first thing I want to do is I just want to make just a sample request. So I'm just going to give myself some room up here. Actually, first I have to include. So I need to include my request promise. And then I want to just make a test call. I want to make a test call by using request. And then I can do like methods get. So the URL, now I have to go check to see what the URL is on the developers thing. So it looks like the URL is, let me get it here. Okay, so my base URL is api.giphy.com/v1/gifs/search. So from here I need to do two things. So question mark, I think they said query, a queue perhaps. Look in the chat. Okay. Looks like queue. Oh, API key first. So I got to do API key equals config.giphy key. Then I got to specify the actual query. So I'll do an and queue equals. So from here I'm just going to hard code something, call it cat. And you may want to go in the Discord now if you don't have the Discord up as well as the stream. Go into programming general, because I'm about to start Felix up and test it out there. So then I'm going to do, I know it's a JSON API, so I'll do JSON true, simple true. And from here I can just absorb the response to like console.res.data. So I'm going to keep watching the stream, but I'm going to post something in Discord once I start using Felix. Sorry, maybe that was too premature. So I'm going to run this now by doing node.js. So you can see I got all this data. I got a bunch of different data. Type GIF. Okay, so this is a huge amount of data. But I think the actual documentation, yeah, well, I could just analyze this and look for one. So like type GIF images. Let me see if I can find an example. So do like Giphy API Giphy API search response. Whoa, easy on the general chat. Okay, there's another way I can do this. So rather than looking at it like that, I'll do JSON dot stringify null for. Yeah, it's just too big. There we go. I know it's a lot to absorb, but this is one object right here, as far as I can tell. So type is GIF. So really what I'm interested in is I'm interested in images, and I'm interested in one of these. They got a lot here, like fixed height still, original still, fixed width, fixed height small, all this, downsize. So I'm only concerned with the ones that end in GIF. Probably, okay, they got an original. So maybe I'll just use that. Okay, so if I use original, I gotta see what the actual root of this is. I don't know if I can go up that high. No, I can't. So I can use less to see the top of it. Oops. Okay, so it's an array. So res.data is an array, so I need to get the first element .images.original.url. So my GIF is going to be res.data first element .images.original.url. So now I'm just going to test if that works. It's going to output the GIF and just see if that was enough. And it is. You can see I just got a GIF. So if I copy this into my Chrome, let's see what I get. Yeah, I get a cat smashing on a keyboard. So that worked. That's great. However, keep in mind that I hard coded cat. You know, I specifically did cat. So what I need to do now is I need to make it more dynamic. I need to take whatever somebody's asking Felix and dump it into Giphy. So let's modify that to do this. So right now I have the GIF. I have the GIF is great, but what do I do with the GIF? Well, I gotta send it to the channel. So I don't have the channel available here because I'm just doing some testing. So now it's time to actually copy this into all the extra bot code. This was just test code that I did. So bot.message, I'm just gonna copy this. So in bot.message, I'm gonna take content, which is the message content, and I will do, you know, content.match. I'll just do something like Felix GIF greedy. So this will match anybody that says Felix GIF. I should probably do a space there too. So we'll say the syntax is going to be Felix GIF cat or Felix GIF computer, or Felix GIF dance, or Felix GIF whatever. So from here I can drop my code in here. So I need to replace cat with whatever Felix said. So the way I can do that is if I know that everything from GIF and earlier is just the text that I wrote and then the term is going to be after GIF, I can do this very simply by, you know, variable term. I can do content.split. I can split on GIF and then just take the second element. And then from there, I could just dynamically add that term into the request. Then the final piece, now that I'm in this actual bot code, I have access to channel, which means I can do channel.send. Channel.send GIF. And that may actually be it. This may work as is. So I'm going to start my bot. And I'm going to go into the channel here. Felix GIF cat. Look at that. Oh, look at all this good stuff in the chat. So you can see how quickly I did that. It took very little code. It was only, how many lines was this? 18. So yep, somebody crashed it. Somebody crashed my code. Cannot read property images of undefined. Oh, you know what? I'm really glad this happened because this is one of the checks that I can do. So what happened here was somebody did Felix GIF like Hitler or something like that. And obviously there's no Hitler GIFs, or maybe there is. So what I need to check is if it cannot read property images of undefined, then that means that res.data might not be available. So I can do a check here. I can say if res.data.length, because it's guaranteed to be an array, is less than or equal to 0, then I can just do channel excuse me, channel.send sorry could not find a GIF for term, and then just bail out of that. So when I start the bot back up, okay, now you guys can start doing it again. Except now, if you do something like Felix GIF, you know, sorry, could not find a GIF for all that. Pretty cool, huh? this is such a great idea. Look at all these GIFs. So that's Felix GIF bot right there, and not that hard to do. Just this is a really quick integration, and this is how a lot of integrations go. You know, you review the docs, you check out how their API works, and then you just use your HTTP library of choice. In my case, it's request, which is a module for node.js, and you just whip it out. Now, of course, there's so many things that can be done better. So it's not like, remember, I just did this in what, 10 minutes, you know, from start to finish. So you know, I could improve it to accept, you know, Felix, give me a GIF, or, you know, there's lots of other things I could do. Okay, so we're at 51 minutes, so I'll do 9 more minutes of questions. So send the admins your questions. Admins, if you can give me some questions in. Okay, so if anybody has any questions, or does anybody have any questions on this particular thing I just did, or just any questions in general? I'm watching the chat now. Actually, James, I'm gonna answer your question. That's a good question. I don't know C++, not a pro in C or Python. Should I learn C++ or Rust to improve my C and Python? So this is a good question because Rust is new, but Rust makes a lot of big claims, you know, of stuff that it can do. And I think if you're doing embedded, you got to look at what the target language is going to be for the embedded type stuff, and you're probably going to find that it's C. Make me bigger here. You're going to find that it is C. So I would get a good grasp on C as an embedded programmer. C can never, like, I learned C because C lets you learn the fundamentals of programming, and it lets you see what all this high level code, because remember, like 90% of the languages out there, they're underpinned by C initially. You know, some of them are written in themselves now, a concept called bootstrapping. But in general, C underpins all these languages. And of course, what underpins C is, you know, assembly, which is the lowest point in programming. So definitely do C. If you want to learn C, read the K&R, Kernighan and Ritchie, C Programming 2nd edition. It's the best book ever. I've read it probably 8 times. Am I going to do anything related to deep learning? Yes, but not right now. The problem with deep learning is a real sciencey thing. It's a real data sciencey thing. And I don't mind saying that my strong suit is not data science. I'm an engineer. You know, sort of different things. But I plan on doing it. I might reach out to other YouTubers like Syntax, something like that, see if they want to do a collab on that sort of stuff. What are your 5 fluent languages? So number 1 at the very top is JavaScript, specifically Node.js. I feel like I know 100% of that language. I've read the whole manual. I don't need to go to documentation anymore. And I guess that's the definition of being fluent, is if you could just write things without having to reference any documentation. Second one, somebody just crashed my bot again. Oh, API rate limit exceeded. All right, well, you guys killed my bot. So that's it. It's dead. I know Giphy said you can apply for a production key, but you guys just used up all my API calls. Okay, so next one. I hate to say this, I'm gonna get a lot of heat, but I'm actually fluent in PHP. Oh, that was difficult to say. The PHP is what I started with. I started with PHP back in 1998, around there. That was my first web language, and I used it up until like 2013. So I'm still fluent in it. Second, of course, is like the HTML, CSS, you know, combination. Definitely fluent in that. Next is, I would say, Python. Python's probably a point of fluency. And I almost want to call C as a point of fluency. I've written a web server. I've written my own programming language in C. I've done a lot of stuff in C. So I sort of feel like that's probably a point of fluency. The rest of them, like, I got a working proficiency in Ruby. I have a working proficiency in C# and Java, and to a lesser degree Rust. I used Rust in the early days, but I stopped using it because it was sort of immature. I used it at version 0.9, and now it's, 1 point whatever. What is something cool I can do with Raspberry Pi to learn Node.js? That's a good question. I actually just got done with a project recently that was in Node.js that was a light sensor. And what I did was I had a Raspberry Pi. It's kind of a cool project. I might have a picture of it. Hold on a second. Let me just find something. Here, February. I really want to show this to you because it's sort of a cool Raspberry Pi project that I did. I'm sure I have a picture of it somewhere. Maybe I don't. Oh, I thought I did, but maybe I don't. What a bummer. Oh, here it is. Oh, yep, found it. Okay. I'm gonna take off my screen here. Okay, so it might be tough to see, but this is a little project I did, and it's a Raspberry Pi, and it has a light sensor on the end. And what it does is, as this belt is going across it, the light sensor senses the white bars, and then it basically runs some code. In this case, there's a camera that takes a picture. So this was sort of a cool, sort of Raspberry Pi project I did, and this is in Node.js. I wrote this in Node.js. I have an event that listens for changes in the. It's actually not a light sensor. I'm sorry, it's an RGB sensor. I said light because there's a light on it. It's an RGB sensor. So I look for changes in RGB values that closely resemble white rather than the gray of the belt. What are your thoughts on becoming a full-time YouTuber? You know what? The more and more I make these videos, the more and more I think that's something that I want. So I don't know. I got to see what that looks like. Of course, I still have to pay my own bills, sort of thing. So right now I only do this part-time. To take it on full-time, maybe around 200 subscribers. I'm sorry, 200,000 subscribers. I might be able to make a run at doing this full time. Yeah, okay. I saw a question I can answer real quick. It was IDE setup. I use Atom Editor. It's all stock. Like the theme is stock. I use whatever is pre-installed. The only things that I install for Atom Editor are Minimap on the right side, and then I install any language packages. As a first language, what would you recommend for a 26-year-old noob? It's funny. Okay. For that person, I would first ask what that person wants to do, like for work. Does he want to be a web guy? Does he want to be a mobile guy? Or does he want to be a kind of like a systems guy? And that really changes, that changes things as to what you should use. So, if you want to be a mobile guy, you, of course, would then choose Apple or Android. For Apple, you're going to do Swift. For Android, you're going to do Java. If you want to be a web guy, I'd be looking at either Node.js or I'd be looking at Ruby. Ruby on Rails. I've done a lot of work with Ruby on Rails, and I think it's a pretty cool web framework. So Ruby is worth learning. If you want to do system stuff, general programming, whatever, then you're going to want to do Python. That's what I would recommend. Can you explain the purpose of this bot for... I don't understand that question. Can you explain the purpose of this bot for those who don't know about Discord? Okay, so if you don't know about Discord, it's a collaborative chat system, and the bots can, as people make messages, the bot can see that message and respond to that message. So the purpose of this is to just take people's feedback and do something in the chat with it. I know C++, I should still learn JavaScript and C. If you know C++, then I don't want to go as far as to say you know C, but what I will say is that C++ is a superset of C, and they could both do the same things. They just do them differently. I would probably just stick with C++ if you already know that. It's just as popular. There's going to be things that you should use C for, but you could just use C++. And should you learn JavaScript? Well, I mean, if you're a C++ programmer who builds games or does systems programming or embedded stuff, high performance engineering, then no, JavaScript. That's funny. C++ is C with love handles. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that sounds right. Should you learn JavaScript? Probably not. I mean, JavaScript is, so keep in mind there's two JavaScripts. You have JavaScript in the web, and we're going over time. Stick with me. We're going to just go about 5 more minutes, or as long as you guys want, I guess. I don't have anywhere to be. There's two JavaScripts. There's just JavaScript in the browser, standardized by the ECMA 266 standard. I'm sorry, 262 standard. And then you have node.js, which is JavaScript on the server side, which uses Chromium's V8 JavaScript engine that kind of underpins the whole thing. Let's see, what do we got? Yes, Mohammed Habib Jawadi. Just like TS and JS, that's exactly correct. So TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. All JavaScript, as long as it's not really badly written, is typically valid TypeScript, and TypeScript goes to JavaScript in the end. Any suggestions for new programming? New programmers, Code Academy and the Engineer Man Basics Python series, I think is, oh, I'm sorry, new programmers, not specific to Python. So for new programmers, it's just about learning syntax, because across all the languages, a lot of the languages are, a lot of them are the same in that they all implement the same stuff. Like every language has the if construct. Every language has else if. Every language has loops. Every language has variables. They're all the same in that regard. So you should be looking at learning syntax, learning the basics about programming. And it doesn't really matter what language that's in, because they're all transferable. Where the languages start to diverge is in their standard libraries. Like Python has the URL lib module, it has JSON module, stuff like that. Node.js has JSON built in, but it has request module. All of these are, different between the languages. Let's see. What kind of careers can you get from Python? Anything. Python is widely used. It's on Raspberry Pi. It's on the web. It's on systems programming. It's on GUI programming. It's all over the place. I've applied to almost 200 in a month, local and remote, and 80% of the time I get denied. Do you have any advice? My advice is, that's an interesting problem. 200. Well, if 80% of the time you're getting denied, wouldn't that imply that 40 times you did not get denied? Like, what happened in those other 40 times? Did you make it to the interview and it didn't work out there? Or, I mean, if what I'm reading is accurate, then, I mean, even I get denied for stuff. If I go to find a job, people are going to ignore me. The other thing I should say is I used to be a hiring manager. And when I would put out a job rec for a new engineer, a new programmer, I would get tons and tons of stuff, and administratively it was a lot to go through. So it's possible your stuff just got lost. So when people don't get back to you for interviews and people don't say, hey, come in for an interview or whatever, don't immediately take that as, oh, I'm not good enough, or oh, they didn't want me, because sometimes it's just your paper got lost on a desk full of papers. I mean, really, that does happen. I promise you. I've done it personally as a hiring manager. Where did you learn how to code? University, college, self? I would say a blend. I I started out. I completely taught myself how to code in the beginning. I started when I was 9 years old. I started with Visual Basic 3 on Windows 3.1. And I taught that entirely myself. I live in a small town. Of my high school graduating class was 83 people, and so as you can imagine, in a small town like that, they didn't have a whole lot of programming. So they had programming, and they had advanced programming. Programming was Visual Basic, and advanced programming was C++. And of course, as a 12-year-old, I'm sorry, as a 14-year-old and a 15-year-old at the time, I that wasn't enough. So, but I knew this is what I wanted to do in the beginning. I knew that programming was going to be a thing I was going to do in the long term. I just knew that. I was very passionate about it. I enjoyed the fact that I basically had a blank slate to create anything I wanted ever, and that just really sucked me in. I just loved it. So I would later go to college for electrical engineering, and I learned a lot of the really low level kind of brick and mortar type boilerplate that I never really looked into before, and that was very good. So programming, I would say like 99% I just taught myself, and then for stuff that's not quite related to programming, some of the hardware stuff, electrical engineering type stuff, I primarily learned that from studies. Do you like Scratch? I'm assuming you mean the Scratch programming language. I think Scratch Scratch looks a lot like a cartoon to me, and I it's just funny what people build in this sort of cartoony, blobby puzzle piece type programming scheme. I would say I like it in that I think it's a fascinating concept, but I don't use it. It's not a thing I use. What was my first project? That's a good question. My, at the risk of absolutely embarrassing myself, I'm gonna answer this. So of course, I'm 34 years old. So when I was 9, something that was huge was Pokemon cards. And my first project was I asked my parents to go buy me a scanner, and what I did is I scanned every single card, and I created a HTML page that had all of them on there, and I would inventory them all, and yeah, so that was the first project ever. So good. Let's see. Okay, I'm just reading comments now. Where are they now? I have no idea. They could in a box or try. I have no idea. Somewhere. Yeah, well, hey, if you're the kid with the Pokemon card inventory in 1995, you are the cool kid. Just so you know. All right, let's see. Yeah, my 9-year-old found Scratch intuitive when we were looking for things to do. Yeah, that's it is intuitive because it's very visual. Kids are visual learners. Kids see, well, this piece fits with this piece, and 9, 9 is really enough to start learning. I was 9, so they see, oh well, I can take this piece, and I can take that piece, and I can like just doop, it's like snap them together, and it'll do things. And to a kid, that sort of stuff is really satisfying. Seeing things on the screen, moving, see a cat walking across the screen, like that's super satisfying for somebody of that age. Give Chase extra pets from his Uncle Nate. Nice. Thanks for joining the live stream. My friend Nate, I know him in real life. Great guy. And he's a budding programmer. He may not tell anybody that, but he's got some aptitude. He just has to work on it. Keep working on it, and he'll get better. Thanks for joining, Nate. Appreciate that. Extra pets for Chase. Just found your channel. What do you usually do on your live streams? Well, this is the very first one, and I'm totally just winging it. I had a really rough agenda, and we're an hour and 10 minutes in. I think we're coming to the end. Questions are starting to slow down, so I think we're at the very end here. Oh, another one. Best practices to read a new code base. So I'm not sure to read a new code base. I'm going to assume you mean a new code base that already exists that has a bunch of stuff in it, and you're wondering how to read it. This is actually one of the points where I have a lot of trouble with and I think it's because I want to just get in there and I just want to know it all right away. And so when you get into a new code base, understand that there's just no way you're going to look at it and just suddenly know everything that's going on. And you guys be patient with it, because with a new code base as well, there's going to be a lot of variance in quality in that code. And so you have to reason about that. You got to understand that it's not all going to be great. Some of it's going to be garbage. So the best advice is just to be patient, go through it slowly, just recognize that taking on a new code base is a very challenging thing. Are you doing corporate life or do you do independent contractor? So I work exclusively out of my house. I do a little bit of traveling around for different work, but in general, I almost consider myself semi-retired in that I only work on the stuff I want to work on. I do have a full-time job during the day that I do stuff on, and which is somewhat software related. A lot of what I do is nights and weekends though. Just found your channel. You have a great perspective. Keep it up, dude. Thanks a lot. Cutie Patootie 340. Appreciate that. Yes, Siddharth, I know you donated me some money earlier. What's your question? Ask it in the chat. I'll answer whatever you say. Ducky, can you find his question for me? Whatever that was. There it is. Python currently being used at all in creating the current generation computer bots to play against humans. So Python is kind of like the official language of machine learning, and with that comes this idea that you're going to find bots in Python. I mean, you got TensorFlow, you got a lot of different utilities to make these artificial intelligence machine learning models. And I guarantee that people are using them to make bots, and I guarantee that people are using them to make bots that play against humans. You can actually even see on YouTube, there's a lot of, there's one which I thought was cool. It was called like Marlo or Mario or something like that, and it was artificial intelligence learning to play Super Mario. And if artificial intelligence can learn to play Super Mario, it can also learn to play Halo, and it can learn to play Gears of War and whatever people are playing these days. So, yeah, I'm sure it's out there. I don't think it's fully mature. I mean, artificial intelligence is a really, really abstract concept, and there's a lot of really cool things happening in it now, but I don't even think we're at the glory days of artificial intelligence and machine learning yet. Is machine learning easy? It's not. So the problem with machine learning is it's a lot of data science, it's a lot of math, and if you're not a mathematician, then you're going to be at a disadvantage. And I'm personally not a mathematician. I'm not that great. You know, I could do math, but I'm not awesome at it. And that's perfectly fine with me because I've gotten by just fine so far without using advanced math all the time. There's this misconception that you're going to be a programmer and it's all math, and that's not really true, except in one case. I know Ducky's he's gonna hit me for this in the chat, but there's one case where you need to have a lot of math, and that's in game programming. I spent 5 minutes trying to make a game in Cocos 2DX one time, and I realized that it is just, oh my god, math. So, but outside of that, the only math you're really using is math that is specific to the problem you're trying to solve. Oh, yeah, Bergen, sorry. Yeah, maybe it was 90, 98, 99. Good point. So that probably wasn't my first one. You know what? It was my first one. It's the first one that I call a real project. I did a lot of, my very first programming is going to be with America Online 2.5, because that's what was out back in 1995. And there's a lot of things you could do on there. You could kick people off. You could put a bunch of text on the screen. You could. Oh yeah, this whole live stream is being recorded. It's going to go up on my channel as soon as I'm done. So, yeah, America Online was sort of the like age 9 to age whatever, but then the Pokemon card thing, that was probably the first project that I did. I spent days on that. Okay, Ducky just put a question in here. How can one who knows basics really get advanced in programming? So that actually has a really simple answer, and it's do a project that you think you can't do. The only way you can push your boundaries is by setting boundaries beyond your barriers and just pushing through it. So pick a lofty goal. Pick a lofty goal that you want to achieve, and just make that your goal and just work towards it. It doesn't matter how long it takes you. The purpose is to get out of the comfort zone of where your current skills are and just continue to push it further. I noticed your Atom runs really fast. How can I get that? Mine is too slow. I'm guessing my Atom runs fast probably because of Linux. I don't think it's the software. I think it's just my computer's very powerful. I run a very lean and mean Linux operating system, and I think that's what causes it to go so fast. Yeah, so 8-bit engineer, that's a good question. How do you come up with ideas? Man, that's a tough question, and it's one that I don't really have a really direct answer to, and that's because coming up with ideas is the hardest thing you can do. It's so difficult to sit down and say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this. It's just so hard because you got to be an ideas guy. And if you're not an ideas guy, it's tough to come up with ideas. I'm personally not an ideas guy. I consider myself like a catalyst, like an amplifier. Once somebody kicks it off and gets a little something going, then I can just turn it into something huge. Why do people hate PHP? Jobs still require it. Let's just talk about that for like 2 minutes. So the reason PHP gets so much hate is because PHP, the letters, used to be for personal home pages. And when the language was created, they created it to help people make, well, personal home pages. So PHP 1, 2, 3, even 4 were all just geared towards that. It wasn't geared towards any real programming. It wasn't until PHP 5 that we got some really solid object-oriented facilities in PHP. The problem is, once they made PHP a real language, and of course they changed the name, it's not personal home pages now, it's PHP hypertext preprocessor. So once they did that rebranding and they created the new, they created all these new features, it was they dragged all the garbage from the prior versions in, and when they dragged all that in, now it's just the language it is, and you're still dealing with it. So they just released PHP 7, which I don't know a whole lot about, but I do know that they redid the underlying engine. They made it a lot faster, and they weren't afraid to break backwards compatibility to fix some stuff. So PHP needs a lot of work, and it's mostly historical reasons and maintaining backwards compatibility as to why it gets so much hate. The other reason it gets a lot of hate is because it has a super low barrier to entry. Anybody can just name a file .php, put some stuff in it, throw it in the root of Apache, from a shared server somewhere, and then just suddenly they're they're good to go. Oh, nice. French Fruits, thanks for the $4.99. Wow, thanks so much, man. I appreciate that. Great stuff. I'm gonna read yours. Great stuff. What are some tiny, ultra small projects and tools you like to make? Like that Craigslist scammer example, short, sweet, and fun. Okay, so I'm a big fan of just making my own stuff. If I look for a tool, for instance, like a database migration tool, if I go on the line and I look for a database migration tool and I don't find one that I like, I'm immediately going to go and just rebuild it myself. And I'm going to do that for two reasons. Number one, I'm going to do it because I know it's going to be customized to what I want. And number two, I'm going to do it because I'm going to learn a ton by reinventing someone else's software. So I guess the answer to that is I enjoy reinventing the wheel. Occasionally. Like, I'm not reckless with it. I'm not going to reinvent a giant web framework that's been battle tested for 10 years. But if I find something small, I'm not going to just go on the internet and find it. I'm going to build it. So that's small projects. And actually, that's small tools. And the Craigslist scammer video, you know what? That stuff just comes up. That stuff just comes to me. I looked at my phone. I looked at my text. I saw that I had that message from that guy, and I just immediately went for it. I immediately went to my desk and I started recording. Okay, how is the life of a YouTuber? YouTube is really great now. YouTube before was not so great because I got a lot of hate. I got a lot of people being rude in the comments, and if that's something new to you, if you don't know how to cope with that, which for a while I didn't, it really bummed me out. I was getting super bummed out. So, but I like it now. I find it amusing, even if people tell me my stuff sucks or whatever. I just find it amusing. I move on. It's all good. So I'm enjoying it. Okay, look at my admins. What do you do besides your work? So I am a drone pilot. I like to fly drones. I'm beginning a lot into the first-person drone piloting type stuff. It's probably one hobby. And that's probably really it. What hardware are you sporting? So I run a Dell PowerEdge R620. It's a dual processor, 8 cores each, so 32 core system with 192 gig of RAM. And then for my main system, I know you can't see it, but I have 8 27-inch monitors stacked 2 by 4. And they're 2K monitors, and that's my setup. Okay, I'm taking 2 more questions, and then we're gonna wrap this up. Actually, one more question. What do you use all the crazy amount of compute? Okay. So I'm going to answer Joshua Bryan's question. I think that's going to be the last one. So people always ask me why do I have so much high power technology? Why do I have 8 monitors? Why do I have my own server? Why do I have this? Why do I have that? And the simple answer is you have to have the right tools for the job. That's the most plain and simple answers I can give. People say, well, I code on 2 monitors and that's enough. And I tell them, if you had 8 monitors, you would realize very quickly that those 2 monitors are not enough. Because I want to put a third row of 4 and do 12 monitors. That's how not enough the current 8 are. So you gotta have the right tools for the job. And for me, the right tools for the job is lots of screen real estate, lots of computing power, lots of RAM, because I have 5,000 Chrome tabs open and 4 copies of Atom and just a litany of other stuff. Okay, I think that's it. I think we're all done here. So before I go, I just want to thank everybody again. Thanks a lot for coming to my live stream. This was a complete success. We went for an hour and a half, 25 minutes over. Hope that was okay. I think we had a peak of 200 people at one point. Wow, crazy. To put that in perspective, I was hoping for 10. I was going to be elated for 20. So the fact that 200 people showed up, I thought that was really great. Join my Discord server if you haven't already. Admins, if you can put a link in the description for people that don't have it. There's a lot of great discussion going on there, and it's a place where you can interact with me. You can request videos, and you can also let me know how you felt about the stream and what you'd like to see differently or what you'd like to see in it. So, yeah, have a look. There's the link there. So yeah, just thanks a lot again. I really appreciate the admins for getting on. I know CipherTrap had to get up really early, so thanks for that. I may push the live stream 1 hour, do it like 11. It was a little early for me. I felt like I was rushing this morning. So I think that's it. Thanks a lot for being part of the Engineer Man community. Thanks a lot for watching my videos and coming and saying hi and all the kind words. I definitely get way more kind words than I do hate, so thanks for that. Thanks for offsetting all that. And yeah, I can't wait to keep making more videos for everybody, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.